Okay guys, I've skipped ahead to exercise 3.10 because in the previous pages on page 46 and page 47 you actually are talking about your first formula. So if you remember from the other video, we are calculating average daily inpatient census. That is a formula given to you to calculate for adults and children, and then separately for newborns. And exercise 3.10 goes over how to calculate that particular problem. So we're going to flip back over here and remind ourselves what the actual formulas are. So for the let me flip one more page. Sorry about that. So for the average daily inpatient census, it's the total number of inpatient service days for a period excluding newborns over the total number of days in the period. And from the other video, you kind of remember the knuckles and all that good stuff. And then we have the average daily newborn census, and then as well as the average daily inpatient census for a patient care unit. Oh boy, this is real time. Can y'all hear the phone ringing in the background? But we're going to just kind of keep rolling. So on exercise 3.10, you are asked to complete the following exercises, so let's just jump right in. One says, community hospital has 200 beds and 25 newborn bassinets. Total inpatient service days for May were 5,297 for adults and 486 for newborns. And A asks you, what is the average daily inpatient census for adults and children, and to round that to a whole number. So let's come back over to page 45, where you'll find that particular formula. So we're looking for the number of inpatient service days for a period excluding newborns over total number of days in the period. So when you're taking a look at that, I'm going to grab my work pad over here. So your problem says that the total number of inpatient service days for adults and children were 5,297. And so that's going to be the top portion of our formula, because remember, our formula asks us for the total number of inpatient service days. And the bottom portion of that formula, we're going to flip back one more time, remember, is the total number of days in the period. So what are the total number of days in the period? Well, guys, we're going to use May. So this is when you have to know how many days there are in May. So we know that whether we just know it or we did our knuckles or we said the nursery rhyme, there are 31 days in May. So that should be the proper setup for your calculation. And I'm going to just go ahead, and this is on my iPhone, so we're going to work it out. It's probably a little smudgy and the screen's cracked, so sorry about that. So you're going to take 5,297 and you're going to divide that by 31, and you're going to get 170.8. Remember, if we're following the next door neighbor rule, right? So then our answer is 171, because this is obviously above 5, so we're going to add 1 or increase it. So we're at 171, rounding to a whole number. So I hope you were able to get that. Then B, so this was A, so B says, how about determine the average daily newborn census and round that to a whole number? And just reminding you that that's on the bottom of page 46, and it's the total number of inpatient service days for newborns over the total number of days in the period. So we're going to use the total number of inpatient service days for newborns, and your problem tells us that it is 486. 486 inpatient service days. So over that is the total number of days in the period, and y'all, it's still May. That doesn't change. So you can see where this can fall apart pretty quickly if you're using the wrong number as your bottom number. So I'm going to bring my calculator up here again. 486 divided by 31, and you get 15.6. So 15.6, and remember, we're looking to our next door neighbor, so our final answer is going to be 16. So hopefully for number 1, A and B, that's the answer that you got. You check the back of the book, and the back of the book says the same thing, and we're all on the same page. So let's just whip on over to number 2. So number 2 says a 150-bed, 15-bassinet hospital has 4,000 inpatient service days for adults and children and 360 newborn service days during June. So a 150-bed, 15-bassinet hospital. Well, that's strange. What's all that? So remember, with word problems, this is why people hate word problems, because word problems tend to give you extra information that you don't necessarily need. So right now, the fact that there are 150 beds and 15 bassinets isn't important information or useful to the calculation that we're currently using, but it will be down the road. So it's just getting you used to that particular terminology. So number 2A says, what is the average daily inpatient census excluding newborns, round to a whole number? So we're back to kind of sort of doing the same thing we did for the first problem. So let's take a look at that. So number 2A says, what is the average daily inpatient census excluding newborns? So we know that we need the number of inpatient service days, right? So the number of inpatient service days for adults and children. Our text tells us that's 4,350. I keep wanting to say 400. And we know, because we've done the formula right, if you're checking your formula, if you're following your formula, we know that it's over the total number of days in the period. The problem tells us that it's June. Okay, so we know that we're working with June. So how many days are in June? Well, you can do the rhyme, do your knuckles, or maybe you just know that there are 30 days in June. So we're going to pull our calculator back out, right? 4,350 divided by 30. Oops. And that should be an even 145. So we're good, no rounding. We've got our final answer, 145. B asks us to determine the average daily newborn census, and we're going to round to a whole number. So we're going to set that up, right? So we need the number of inpatient service days for newborns. Our problem tells us it's 360 over the total number of days in the period, June again, 30. And so when you do the math, let's see here, so that's 360 divided by 30, and you're going to get 12. Another nice whole number. We love it when that happens. All right, so hopefully you did well on number 2, and that helps you out a little bit. So let's take a look back at the textbook, and we're at number 3. Compute the average daily newborn census for a 125-bed, 10-bassinet hospital with 3,001 inpatient service days for adults and children and 298 inpatient service days for newborns during February. That's not a leap year, right? So you read that in your textbook. You might have seen it in our videos. Round your answer to a whole number. Y'all, there's a lot going on in this problem that you don't even need to know anything about those adults and children, right? So your problem asks you to compute the average daily newborn census. So that's what we're going to do. We're concerned with the average daily newborn census, which number 3. So we need the number of inpatient service days for newborns in February, and that's 298. So 298 divided by the number of days in the period, and so for February, when it's not a leap year, is 28 days. Remember, February, it's kind of strange, but, you know, we love you, February, but it kind of messes us up sometimes. And in the process, I've lost my calculator. Here we go. So we are going to do 298 divided by 28, and we're going to get 10 point, I'm moving that. Sorry about that, guys. We're going to get 10.6, and it tells us, or it asks us to round to a whole number, so we're going to move that over right. So that's above 5. We're going to round that to 11. And that should be your answer for number 3. Okie dokie. So number 4 says, if you need to calculate the average daily inpatient census of the surgical unit, where can you obtain the surgical unit's inpatient service days? Anybody got any ideas about that one? So every PCU, or every patient care unit, reports to the master census or to the central collection area for the census, and so that's going to be the easiest way to obtain that information should you need it. So let's look at number 5. And then we should be pretty good to go there. Number 5, Community Hospital's burn unit has 12 beds. The inpatient service days for December were 358. What is the average daily inpatient census for the burn unit during December? Round to a whole number. So remember that back here on page 47, they gave us a calculation for individual patient care units. But guess what, y'all? It's the same type of problem. It's total number of inpatient service days to total number of days in the period, regardless if it's adults and children, newborns, or a unit. So let's look at that. So number 5 says the burn unit has 12 beds. We don't care about that. The number of inpatient service days for December were 358. It gave us some important information there, right? Look, it's December, so we know that the number of days in the period would be 31, because that's how many days are in December. So we're going to come back over here. Oh, my phone's kind of wonky. See here, 358 divided by 31, and we're going to get 11.5. 11.5, and it asks us to show our final answer to a whole number. So we're going to look at our next door neighbor, and guess what? It's 5 or above, so our final answer is 12. So I certainly hope that this helps you with exercise 3.10 and your first official formal formulas. So very exciting that we're moving on to formulas. I will come back in a different video and we're going to hit some high spots in the chapter review. Thanks.